Cool. Hey, so my name is Tobias Eichenwald. I'm one of the co-founders of Senic. We're a hardware software startup based here in Berlin. And today, for the first time, we're going to present our second product, which is launching today on Kickstarter, to you guys exclusively. And in that process, I'm going to talk about a problem that we're all increasingly facing, and a problem that a lot of people are not really talking about yet. And in that process, I'm also going to talk about a design shift in technology that we're going to see over the next 10 years, and also a small story about manufacturing in Germany. So we're now 25 people, but we started off with 3 people. And this is one of my co-founders, Felix. He's an industrial designer. Before Senic, he was doing a lot of research on different forms of interaction, on haptics, speech, gesture, with also like scientific institutions like the German Center for Artificial Intelligence. And then my second co-founder, I like to call him the mad scientist. He's an electrical engineer, and before Senic, he was building quantum computers in Berkeley. He was planning manufacturing plants for Audi in China, and his family actually owns a pretty large electronics manufacturing company here in Germany where we do our electronics. And I come from a mixed background in psychology, design, and business, and I really care about how technology actually affects us. We started the company in 2013 as part of Y Combinator, and we started off realizing that we're facing a problem that now, over the last 3 years, we've been just seen growing and growing and growing. Today, on average, our generation, we check our phones over 100 times a day, and we spend more than 8 hours a day looking at screens. And there's more studies coming out of those side effects of this powerful pill, and those side effects reach from social isolation to distraction, where we cannot really listen to people anymore, all the way to health problems with the phone in the bed, where we actually have sleep deprivation. And sleep is really important because it cleans out the toxins in our brain, and we need this to be able to focus. Now, over the last 50 years, we've seen a major technological shift about every 10 years. And it was funny because about 3 years when we started, everybody was still talking about the smartphone. And the things that we were talking about, people would always say, well, I can do everything with my smartphone. And it's funny that 3 years later, barely nobody is doubting anymore that the smartphone is distracting, and that we're really waiting for the next generation of interfaces and ways to interact with technology. Now there's the next hype. There's always the hype. You should look it up. It's called the Gartner hype. People really overestimate the short-term effects of things and underestimate the long-term effects of technologies. And now it's all about speech, and then it's going to be the next thing. But one of the core things, and this is maybe a takeaway if you're a designer, is that the human psychology works very similar to the way water flows down a stream. The water always chooses the path of least resistance. And the mind works in a similar way. So when I'm talking about controlling my music, for example, something like just tapping a surface or a button is the path of least resistance. But when I'm moving away 3 meters, this path of least resistance changes, and it might be voice. And there's also other use cases when I'm trying to send money, for example. People actually want a visual feedback of what they're doing. So it's not a question this time in the next generation of interfaces, what is the one thing that replaces the smartphone? The big difference is that it will be a combination of different interfaces, and that interfaces will blend into the world around us. Now, in this whole trend, there will be different paths. There will be VR, there will be AR, but there's also something we call enriched technology, something that happens on an everyday basis. And one of the things that we're talking about is that the reason we're so distracted is because a lot of those apps on the phone, they're actually specifically designed to grab our attention. They are attention designers. So when you're thinking about the Twitter newsfeed, for example, you know how you get those notifications popping up? you might notice that it actually happens with a slight delay. Now, this delay is actually not by chance. This delay is designed. It's designed because it works similar to a slot machine. In a slot machine, you're pulling the lever and you're waiting. Your attention is building up. And the moment you're seeing something, dopamine is rushing through your brain, and that actually creates addiction. And that's how you stick to your phone. So what we say, and this is a major shift that we're going to see, is that we need to stop focusing on attention first, but need to turn the camera around and design for human well-being first. Human well-being, and it's a broad topic. It means fun, it means health, it's a bunch of things, but it means that these factors are the non-negotiable factor in the design process. And we see how this is becoming more and more urgent. It's a big trend building up, and people are also joining our mission on this. Now, we started this mission of creating technology for well-being 2 years ago, and we started with only 3 people, and we had to really break down this giant mission into something that we felt was actually accomplishable. And we did that by focusing on something that my co-founders and I, we also live in the same apartment, that we do on a daily basis, which is listening to music. But with the music experience, we always had the phone getting in the way of things. When we just wanted to change something, we would also always interrupt the whole conversation. And we just wanted something simple to control our music and something shared to control our music. And this is how Nuimo was born. So Nuimo, what you see here, it's a really simple interface. So it has a physical button that you press, people come home and start playing their Sonos music. It has a really smooth analog ring to adjust the volume, and you can save your favorite stations. And it turns out this is actually most of the things that people are actually using to listen to their music. We're seeing also in music a big shift away from selecting music and then just towards mood-based listening, and then the algorithm takes over. And you can also use this device to control your lighting or heating in the home. And we crowdfunded this device. We raised over $500,000 in pre-orders. And in the process, we won the German Design Award, the Red Dot Design Award, and then went to the hyper-challenging task of manufacturing a hardware product, which I can tell you, no matter how many times you've done it, you will always underestimate it. And we chose to do it here in Germany for many, many good reasons, because when it comes to something like the hand, the feel and the quality is really, really important. So Felix traveled for months throughout all of Germany to find specialized manufacturers who could make this happen. And so the finishing of the metal ring, for example, is the same guy who makes the finishing on Leica lenses, or the injection molding is the company who used to do the Pentax camera. So we really selected all those guys, and these single pieces, they all come to our studio in Kreuzberg, where we hand assemble all the devices. So every couple of weeks, just imagine a small room, we set up tables, we invite our friends, we also invite like 4 to 5 refugees to help us with this, and we build a couple of hundred devices at a time. And one thing about that's really interesting is that when you go to CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, it will really surprise you, because you would assume Germany, of course, there must be so many hardware startups, but there's just absolutely no hardware startups, unfortunately. You see rows of American, Chinese, French hardware startups, but at all of CES, you're going to see maybe 4 or 5 hardware startups, including us, which is shocking. So in this process, we shipped over 10,000 devices. We learned a lot. We went and talked to our backers, to hundreds of them. We went to their homes to understand what really people really care about. And we learned a couple of things about the home and what people care about. So one thing from the market perspective is that when you're trying to build a smart home, you basically have 2 options. So you have either you're building a new home, you're reconstructing, or you have your existing apartment. If you have built a new home, you take traditional building automation systems. And my family's company has built those traditional automation systems for 30 years. It means really pulling cables everywhere, from a light switch to a light, and pulling it to a central unit. And a software developer actually has to come and program this home automation system. It's crazy expensive. It starts at $50,000. You need to be able to write software. If there's a problem, you need to call the company again so they change something. Now, for the last 2 or 3 years, we've had something people call do-it-yourself smart home systems. So those can be, for example, small wireless sensors that you stick on your wall, and if somebody is breaking in, the door is opening, a command is sent to your phone, you get a notification. Now this is also really great. It's just plug and play, it's cheap, everybody can set it up, but it's also, it's not really the quality and the design and the experience what a lot of people care about, and it's also not really usable on a professional grade. So one thing that we found out is that there's actually a third large market, and architects and installers are referring to this market as the middle market dilemma, where you need a plug-and-play system, but it should be really high-quality design and experience, and it should be a professional grade. And this is what we're building. So with Nuimo, for us it was clear, okay, we need to create a smart home system. Now, one other thing that we notice is that in a home, you usually have two partners. And you have one of the partners is usually the part who's into technology. Yes, a lot of times it is the men, but you would be surprised how many times it's actually the other partner. And you have one partner who really cares about design. And that partner usually has the last word. So what we learned is whatever you're putting on your home, technology must come first. We learned that whatever we're building as a piece of technology actually needs to be a piece of interior design first. And this is a big, big lesson that we learned. So all of this combined, all these learnings, led us to the question, what do we build next? And through that, it became clear it had to be a piece of furniture. It had to bring things together as a smart home hub. But it also needed to be something that actually adds benefit and focuses on well-being. So with no further ado, I would like to present to you Kobe. So Kobe, imagine you're not actually going into an electronics store, but you're going into a furniture store. And what you're seeing is just a really minimal, super high quality table lamp. But of course, there's a couple of surprises to this. So Kobe is not only a high quality table lamp, but it's also a speech interface. So you can actually choose what speech service you're using. We're working a lot with Amazon to put in Alexa, but it's also open to others. And at the core, it's also an open source hub. And I'm just gonna walk through those three main features really quickly. So first, talking about speech. So as I mentioned before, there's different ways of interacting. Humans are made more than just out of vision. We have gesture, we have voice, we have all these things, and voice is a really great thing. And just last year, we hit that mark of 90 to 95% voice recognition, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a huge major step, which means basically now voice recognition is better than human hearing. So of course, when I'm talking to you, or when you're talking to me, there's a few things I don't understand, and technology has the same problem, but still it understands us better than humans themselves. And this is of course improving as more people are using this. So you can use Kobe to control the things in your home. You come home and just tell your home to turn on the lights, play a certain playlist on Sonos. You're laying in bed and forgot to turn off the lights. You just tell your home to turn those things off. So the second thing I would like to talk about the light, and we turn it into lamp. We get this question a lot, why a lamp? Now, it turns out that the two things that affect our emotion, our mood the most is music and lighting. And music, there are great speakers out there from Sonos, and we wanted to make the way to your music shorter. By using voice, you're actually making this path to your music shorter, which leads to people using more music, listening to more music. But the other thing is lighting. Lighting really sets the scene. Lighting affects how we feel, and it leads to a deeper conversation. It leads to, at a party, for a great mood. When you're reading, it helps you to focus more. And we put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into this. So this is actually sandblasted glass, and we worked a lot on the different gradings of the glass. We worked with local glass blowers in Wedding. We have some beautiful videos which shows the glass making process. And we chose glass not only for because it's a luxury material, but also for its material attributes. It's the best material for light. It has the best light translucency. Apart from the glass, we're using also a really high-quality aluminum base, and the shape is actually inspired by a traditional gasoline lamp that coal miners would use. So there's also certain features to the lamp, like a simple dimmer that you can also use to control the lamp. And one other thing, the last thing that was important about light is that when you know how the sun is moving throughout the day from a colder light to a warmer light at night, and our body is actually adapted to this. So when we perceive light through our retina, it's sent to part of the brain which we call our body clock. Now this body clock releases hormones which trigger certain functions in our body. So white light leads to awakening. I don't have much more time, right? Yeah, okay. I'll cut it short. So it leads to awakening, and this is why you should never, ever use your phone in your bed. I know the excuses. Just buy a simple alarm clock. It's $10. Or get this. It's also a great alarm clock. But don't use your phone. It's going to make you stay more awake because your body naturally reacts to it. And warm light helps you to relax more. Now I'm just going to jump over a few points. It also works as a smart home app, so you can set automations every morning at 7 o'clock. You can automate that your sonar starts playing and your light turns on, which helps you to start into the day in a really healthy way. Now, as I mentioned, we really care about design for well-being. We really care about manufacturing and bringing that back to Germany. Some people call it the kids of the Mittelstand. And we really want to show how you can build products here, how you can integrate the community, refugees, other people into this. And we just launched today. We only launched 2 hours ago, and we have a 75,000 euro goal, and within 2 hours, we're already at 45,000 euros. So it's a really, really fast process. We have some early bird specials, and I really urge you to support the German hardware community because it's something that is our tradition, and it's also our path forward. So thanks a lot, and if you have any questions, just reach out to me. Thanks, guys. Sorry, I was so long.
No, it's all good. We were running out of time a little bit before. There's a question.
Yes, I have a question. Is this working? Okay.
It's working.
So, yeah, the lamp is the central processor, but you need the outputs. So what are the outputs, the other components? Because you need something to connect to the lights, to the refrigerator, TV, or whatever, in order to have the interaction, to control the interaction.
Sorry, I didn't understand the first part of the question.
The lamp is just the central processor, right? Just the central processor. If you want to turn on another light, you need more hardware. So
yeah, so one thing that was important to us is that one thing that we actually learned about the smart home, you know, people don't have all of these devices. People actually want to go step by step. So what it was important to us is that even if you don't have a single device in your home, you just buy this and you already have a smart home system. So you have a beautiful light, and it actually gives you enough light to create a nice atmosphere in one room. And you have a speech interface. There's microphones and a speaker inside of the base, so you can use it to ask questions, you know, just simple math questions, set a timer in the kitchen, call an Uber. So there's all the things you can use with Alexa, you can also do with the lamp. So there's a lot of functions that you can use the lamp by itself for.
yeah, so far like Alexa.
Exactly.
Right now.
So we're actually using Alexa inside, but we're keeping it open.
Yeah, thank you.
I was wondering, so if you use your voice and you tell him, like, call an Uber, does it talk back to you, like, Siri, ich habe dich nicht verstanden stuff? Or
Yeah, exactly.
It does.
So there's a speaker inside of the base, and we work a lot with like Raumfeld in Berlin and Sonar, so we learned also about a lot of audio engineering. We're by far not experts, and we're sticking to standards here, but it talks back to you, yes.
Okay.
And it's Amazon.
You have to kind of
Yeah, Alexa is
hear
also in
something.
German, so.
Hey, sorry for rushing
Yes,
you. Like,
all good.
But we have to go on. I think if you have, you might want to find each other somewhere else
Cool.
today. So
Please go to the
give another
campaign
applause
back
to
today.
Senic, to this multifunctional smart home. And yeah, I'm going to rush to the next point. So this is your applause.